what would happen if I turned one of the easiest maps in Bloons TD6, Cubism, into one of the hardest maps in all of Bloons? Well, dudes, using the BTD6 map editor, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So the first thing we need to do is, of course, we need to choose a background. Now, with all of like the expert maps, they usually have like a similar theme of like being dark and dreary. So I think for my background, I'm going to be using this. Now that we have our background set, the next thing we need to do is we need to choose a path. So I really like this stone pathway, but as far as like Cubism is concerned, I don't think this would make a very good path. So for the pathway, I think this path is going to work the best because on Cubism, there are a lot of times when the paths cross over each other. So I think this path is going to look the best because it looks really good when you have the paths cross over each other. So now that we have our path selected, the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and make it the actual Cubism path. All right, dudes, so this is the basic outline for Cubism. Now, it probably looks a little bit crazy, but if you take a look at the screenshot, you guys will see that this is the basic outline of Cubism. So now that we have the basic outline for Cubism, the next thing we need to do is we need to add the 2 water features, one right here and one down here at the bottom of the map. I almost wonder if it would be better if I used like a brighter color here, but I don't know if the brighter color would look better or not. So I want to stick with this like a dark and dingy theme because like I was saying, pretty much every single expert maps has a similar theme of being like a dark and dreary. So I think this theme is going to fit pretty well. Now, if this theme doesn't fit well, we can always change like the background to like this or maybe like this. I almost maybe I should do like this. Maybe this would be a better background. I don't know, guys. There's still a lot of backgrounds to choose. So let's go ahead and wait until we progress a little bit further along in the map customization before we finalize our background. All right, so I've added the 2 water features. Now, for like placement purposes, I'm going to go ahead and change the background over to sand. That way we have a better idea of what we're working with. So the first thing on Cubism that you guys will see right here is on these water features, there are like stones that go around the outside to add a little bit of added detail. So that's exactly what we're going to do around each of these water features to kind of like make them blend in a little bit more. Now for the outline feature, I'm going to be using this rock right here because I think this is kind of the best rock because your towers will be able to shoot over top of the rock. So it's not really going to impede with like placement of towers or anything like that. And it's going to add a little bit of something that is on Cubism, but we really don't have too many options. So I think that this is going to be the best option. And I know I said it in the last video, but I am so glad that Ninja Kiwi added this copy and paste function. It makes editing maps so much easier. All right, and that should do it for the outline of the water features. Now, it's not perfect, I know, guys, but this is all we have to work with as far as like objects that I thought would look the best. I mean, there's a couple of other objects that we probably could have used, but I think this one's going to look the best out of all of the objects. I almost thought about using these little square blocks, but in the end, I ended up deciding to go with the rocks. Now, the next thing we need to do, I think I'm actually going to change my mind. I think I'm just going to do like the basic grass, as well as I'm going to turn both of the areas over into this style of water. Because, I mean, when I think of Cubism, I think this style of map suits it a little bit better. Now, when it comes to Cubism, there's the one thing on the map that's pretty difficult to recreate, and that's like the shadow that goes along the pathway. Because if you look at the actual Cubism map, if you actually pay close attention to the map, or to the track, it looks like the track is actually raised. So in order to hopefully be able to make that, I think I want to try to use these shadows. Oh no, I can't use the shadows because the shadows will go over top of the track. I don't know what I can do about this because there's no like small shadows that I can like place next to the track, and there's no way to like actually like make these shadows smaller. So that's one thing that I don't think I'm going to be able to make in the actual map. Actually, you know what, guys? I think I can do it. It's just probably not going to look amazing because it's going to take really precise placement. So I'm going to go ahead and try my best to make an outline around this entire track. So I'll be back in just a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and nix this idea because it's going to look a little bit off balance no matter what I try to do, especially around these like tight corners. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and I'll try to come up with something else. So one thing that's going to be kind of impossible to recreate is the actual brick background. Now, the brick background is something that we can't recreate, but we can definitely do something about the grate that's towards the top of the map. So I need to come up with something to use as like that little bit of a grate. Now, for the grate, the only thing I could really think about using are the fences, but I don't think that looks good. So we'll have to come up with something else to add a little bit of a feature here. So instead of using the fences, I'm just gonna add a couple of boxes, because I mean, I know it's not boxes in the actual Cubism map, but we can go ahead and change it up, because I mean, this is kind of my map, and well, I'm using Cubism as inspiration, and I'm trying to create an expert version of Cubism. So a couple of boxes will work out just fine. Now, the next thing I want to work on is I want to try to work or do my best to take away these jagged edges. And the only way we can really do that is by adding like a couple of like bushes or something like that to kind of give it the appearance that there aren't jagged edges. And we can do this with a couple of different props. So the first prop that we can use is like, obviously we can use like a bush. And we can throw like a bush at the corner to make it seem like there isn't a jagged edge there. Or the next thing we could do is we could go ahead and add a couple of rocks. So if I take this rock and I put this rock right here, one, it's going to add to the toughness, and two, it's going to take away from the jagged edge. And with this rock, the only thing we need to do is we just need to like copy and paste it. And then with this, we'll go ahead and make sure that we're following the right path. We'll go ahead and change the size of the rock as well to add a little bit more detail. And in the meantime, and not only are we making the map harder, but we are also adding to the detail and taking away from like the little things that will make the map look not as good. So by adding these rocks, not only did we take away from the jagged corners up here, but we also took away from the jagged corners at the bottom of the map. So we add a little bit of a mountain range over here on the right-hand side of the map. Now, I know the mountain range isn't in Cubism, but again, I just want to make sure that the pathway looked a little bit better than it did before. Now, we still have a couple of jagged edges that we need to fix, but I can fix those with a couple of different props as well. And now that we've added a mountain range here, I think I want to remove these boxes because the boxes really don't fit there anymore. So instead of those boxes, I think I'm just gonna add like a couple of tree stumps. So we'll add one tree stump, and then we'll also add ourselves maybe like an actual tree. Now the tree that I want to go with, I almost want to make like my own custom tree. Now the only problem with those trees is that those trees will actually act as invisible barriers no matter what I do. So in order to like take away from like adding invisible barriers that I don't want, I'm just gonna go ahead and use this tree right here. And because of this tree really, or the stump really doesn't fit this style of tree, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the stump. And I think that should be perfectly fine. Okay, so now that we've placed that tree, actually, you know what? We can actually get rid of one of the jagged edges if we just move, or if we just rotate this tree. We move it a little bit over here to the left, and now we no longer have to see that ugly side of the pathway. Now, the next thing I want to work on is I want to work on something to take away from this jagged pathway here, because this one really sticks out. Now, I almost want to add another tree, because I mean, the tree always works really, really well. Especially like it taken away from like multiple imperfections. So let's go ahead and add another one of the purple trees. We'll add this one right here. We'll go ahead and increase the size, and then we'll go ahead and rotate it just a little bit. That way it's covering up this imperfection here and this imperfection over here. And then we'll go ahead and add another tree over here, rotate it, and then we'll go ahead and tilt it, and we'll rotate it a bit more, make it a little bit bigger. I don't want to tilt it too much. Let's just go ahead and rotate it instead. Then we'll go ahead and tilt it, and then tilt it this way, and I think that looks all right. I kind of want to add one more side of the tree here just because it looks a little bit barren on this side. So the one thing that we can do is we can go ahead and do this, then we can go ahead and rotate it, and I think that looks perfectly fine. Perfect. So now that we've added that tree, when we got rid of three imperfections, now the next thing we can do is we can go ahead and get rid of these two like kind of like wonky edges over here. Now these edges aren't as bad, so it really won't take much to cover them up. But because we already have two trees, I think I'm going to add a couple more trees. That way we can go ahead and add it to the vibe that we have going with the trees that we currently have on the screen. So add one tree here, we'll add one tree here, and then we'll add a fifth one up here, and this is just again to add to the atmosphere of having the trees. Plus, it's going to make the map a little bit harder because you guys won't be able to like place down as many farms as you guys usually can on Cubism. Now, I know you guys are probably saying to yourself, dude, this is just Cubism with some trees. This is still a pretty easy map. but we'll definitely add a couple of different features that'll make this map way harder than the original Cubism. But before we do that, I want to add a couple of effects in the background because right now the background looks really bare and it doesn't look good. Now, a couple effects that we can go ahead and use is we can use the rock effects, because by using these rocks, it will add a little bit of something to your maps in order to give it a little bit more detail and make the map come to life a little bit more. All right, and there we go. Now, by adding these flowers, it makes the map pop a little bit more because now there isn't all that bare space. And because we can't like make it the brick background, this is the only way that we can add a little bit of flair. Now, with just this, there's still a little bit of like kind of blandness to the map. So in order to take away from that blandness, the next thing I want to do is I want to add some shrubs and some grass effects around these rocks. All right, so we added a couple of shrubs around the map over here by the rocks. We added the shrubs around the trees. And again, that's just to add a little bit of effect to bring the map to life a little bit more. So now as far as like Cubism is concerned, Cubism is a pretty basic map. So I don't think I need to go too more crazy with like placing down like stamps or objects. The next thing I want to do to make this into an expert map is I want to add some invisible pathways. Now, the reason why I want to add these invisible pathways is because I think it would be really cool if this map would be kind of tricky. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to add a pathway over here at the start of the map, and then I'll make it come over here. And then with this pathway, I need to go ahead and change this really quick. Then with this pathway, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the pathway go right back to the start of the map. So this is going to be really confusing, especially if you're not paying attention, because you'll be like, hey, why did I lose? And then you guys will see like, oh, wait, the map or the balloons are stopping here and then they're turning around and going back to the start. So that's one thing that's going to be a little bit of a trick with this map. And I'm going to do this a couple more times with a couple of different pathways. So unfortunately, I'm only able to place 5 pathways. I want there to be like 10 different paths for this map, but I think 5 pathways should be perfectly fine. All right, now the next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and make sure that all of these path widths are set to 1. And now that we have the 5 pathways, we have our map pretty much set up. Now, another thing I really want to do really quick is it looks a little bit barren here. On top of that, there's a little bit of wackiness going on with this corner right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more props really quick. And the only thing I'm doing to add a little bit of effects as well as a take away from the wackiness of the corner is I'm just adding a couple of shrubs. Now with these shrubs, the only thing you need to do is you just need to grab 1 shrub. You need to place it like at the corner of the map, and then you need to grab 2 more shrubs, place them next to the first one, then just make them a little bit smaller. That way it adds a little bit of an effect, but it doesn't look too out of place. There we go. Now, I know this map doesn't look perfect, but I think with what I'm going for, especially since we don't have like the effects for the actual Cubism map, I think this looks perfectly fine. The main thing that I wanted is I wanted the layout for Cubism itself. So now that we've done all that, the next thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of a shaded background. So for the shaded, or for like the shadows, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this effect right here. And I'm going to add a couple of shadows to the background of these trees. That way, again, it brings our map to life a little bit more. Now, unfortunately, there really aren't very many options for like small shadows. So I can't add small shadows around these bushes. Otherwise, that's something that I would do. Now that we've basically got the map all set up, there's nothing else that I really want to add. The only thing left to do is to give this map a try. Now, I'm not sure what to name this track. I think I just want to go with something basic, like maybe like Cubism, or is it? I don't know, dudes. I'm terrible at coming up with names. So we'll just do Cubism. Actually, you know what? We'll just keep it basic. Expert Cubism. So this is going to be the expert version of Cubism. So the next thing I want to do, I'm just going to be playing it on easy standard mode because I want to see how many of you guys can actually beat this on Chimps. Oh, no. Before we get started, I need... Oh, dude, that takes away from the effect that I was going for. That is not cool, man. All right, so the first thing I need to do is I need to back out and I need to cover up these red arrows a little bit more. So what I'll do to cover up the arrows is I'll add myself another tree. And then with this tree, we'll make it a little bit bigger because the people will be like distracted with the red arrows up here as well as the red arrows over here. Then hopefully they don't notice that we have 2 paths that exit off on this side of the map. All right, so there we go. I think this is going to end up making it so the red lines over here aren't as visible. I think we're still going to get the red line here, but I think that should be fine. All right, so you can still see the red line over here, but you guys can't see the red line of the path that's exiting over on this side of the map. So we have 1 exit up here, 1 exit here, and then 1 exit over here. So the first thing that I will... Oh, no, you can still see it. I was hoping that this one would be a little bit of a secret, but there's another pathway that goes that, like, stops like right here, and it goes right back to the start of the track. So that one should be pretty difficult to deal with. But because I know of it, it's not going to be very hard for me to deal with. Now, this may confuse people a little bit because like we'll be on round 2 before our towers actually start to attack. But hopefully they don't pay too close of attention. So the next thing I want to do is I want to place my dart monkey right here. Now, normally, like when people like play on Cubism, they'll come up with a strategy where they like place all of their towers here in the center of the map. And if they do that, they will actually end up losing. Now, I would place Sada a little bit further back, but I know if I place my towers any further back, the balloons will end up coming over here and they'll end up leaving this track over here. So because I don't want to actually end up losing when I'm setting up my track, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of play this safe. So I actually think this is gonna be a pretty tricky track. And I kind of wonder like how many people are going to end up losing by not realizing that the map, there's an exit over here and an exit over here. Now, if they have like the flowers as like their spikes, they may notice, but then again, if you're not paying attention and you don't know that the flowers are there, they may just like think that this is like part of the props. I think if you actually had spikes, I think it would make it a little bit more noticeable. Now, I want to play this safe, but at the same time, I don't want to end up losing. So I'll place like a attack shooter right here. We'll go ahead and upgrade it up to hot shots with probably Ring of Fire. Then after we buy our Ring of Fire, I'll probably place like another tower over here so we don't end up losing to like lead balloons. Now, for the most part, you guys really won't notice a big difference on the easier game modes. The only time you'll really notice a difference is when you're playing on like the harder game modes like Impossible, Chimps, hard standard, maybe even like Magic Monkeys only and stuff like that. So if you guys want to like give this map a try for yourself, make sure you guys play on those game modes. But pretty much like I expected, this map is super easy if you're playing on the easier game modes. But like I was saying earlier, once you start playing on the harder game modes, that's when you guys will really notice a difference. But I don't know, dudes. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of this map. Now, like I was saying, I didn't play it on Chimps because I actually want you guys to play this map for yourselves to see if you guys can beat it on Chimps. So if you guys want to play this map for yourself, here's the code. But that's going to do it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys hit that like button, and I'll see you dudes in the next one.